Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of Lewis Blaw's Game Changers. Today, I introduce you to someone that I've followed on Instagram for a long time, never had the pleasure of meeting, but today we bring you this conversation. He's a level 5 personal trainer and he's recruit 10 on the current series of SAS Who Dares Wins. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Barker. Right, we're live.
Easy, mate.
How's it going, Chris? Good day?
Yeah, it's good, man. Happy to be here.
I'm really glad you come in. It's one of the benefits of actually doing this podcast is that I can level up my interaction with social media and people that I follow as I'm reaching out to people saying, would you like to come in for a chat, come and do an hour's conversation? Everyone's saying yes. And I've followed you for a long time and I'm really glad that you've decided to come along today. So you mentioned you're going straight back to clients after this as well.
Yeah, straight back to work. January is a busy time for personal trainers. So as soon as I'm done here, straight back. Got about 3 clients left for the day.
Nice. What time do you start usually in the mornings?
Well, as of the last 2 weeks, I've started at 6 a.m. most days. People are getting back on it, even though it's fucking cold in the morning.
It's a mad time of year, isn't it? And I feel like how dark and cold it is. If you can break that first morning of getting up out of your warm, cozy bed.
Yeah, I resent my clients a little bit.
It's tough,
Those
right?
6 a.m.ers are not fun.
So are you kind of rolling out of bed, quick shower, brush your teeth and getting in, or are you training yourself first before you get into your clients in the morning?
No, there's no chance. If the gym opens at 6 and I've got a 6, I'm not. Yeah, there's no point. Like I teach a lot of classes as well that usually helps me get like extra training in.
Yeah,
and then I'll usually either make time for my own training or I'll train. I have 1 or 2 clients I can train with.
Yeah.
But no, I literally roll out of bed, jump on my bike,
get it done,
get a coffee in,
get the tunes on,
then it's on.
Yeah, I feel like classes are a mad thing to teach because you get such a big buzz out of it. Do you know what I mean? You've got a room full of like 10, 15 people and you're cracking the whip and you get something out of that. It's like a charge.
Yeah,
isn't
I do enjoy it. I think it's a great way to meet more people as well, because obviously like even today where I'm doing sort of 9 hours of personal training, I see 9 people basically.
Yeah.
But as soon as I teach a class, you're usually seeing maybe 20 people in one go. So
it's one of the best ways to actually build up your client pipeline is
100%.
Get out there, do the classes. Even if you get offered a chance to maybe do a month worth of, 1 class a week for a month at a decent gym, if you can offer to do that for free, you're probably going to walk away with a couple of clients out of that if you go in and apply yourself and make sure everyone gets something
yeah,
out
no,
of the
it's
session.
just like word of mouth on top of it. So other people will they'll be like, oh, I've been to his class, it was great. And therefore like it's easier to get them as a client. If they've never seen you or heard of you, it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, and people get a little bit timid about perhaps investing that time and that money to go and spend an hour with a stranger. So it is that word of mouth that will build your book as a personal trainer. So getting into those classes definitely helps. So again, one of the reasons that I was really glad to have you in is because even though you are a specialist in your, not only in your physical teaching, you've really looked into the science of nutrition as well, for your own reasons, I imagine as well. But let's go back to the beginning, your story of how you became a personal trainer. When was it you decided to take it seriously?
Well, this might come as a shock, but I actually ran nightclubs for about 5 years in London. And I think I've always been into the gym. So as soon as I was allowed to use the gym facilities at my school, I think it was about the age of 15, I was immediately in. So it's always continued throughout my life since then. I was just training myself whilst working in nightclubs, and I think just 1 or 2 of the other people who were going, or some of the people who would visit the nightclubs, they were like, "Oh, you're in decent nick. Like, where do you train?" And I just started training 1 or 2 of the managers. Just like this was before I had the qualifications. They just wanted to train with me. And then a couple of years into running nightclubs, I was just sick of being around drugs, alcohol, drunk people. Like it just, and my passion was there, just sitting there, and I was clearly good at it. People were coming up to me asking for PT, and I hadn't even got the qualification. So I just did it sort of. I stayed on in the nightclubs just sort of part time, did my qualifications along the side of it, and then just finally just called it quits, which was quite hard because there's good money to be made in nightclubs, and to just cut it and go into something that's sort of self-employed, it's quite a hard like place to make good money. I mean, it's not personal training, but like it can be, especially when you're starting. If you don't have the client base, it can be like you're living month to month. Like if I have to pay a gym, say £900 worth of rent every month, if I don't have clients, I can lose money.
Yeah,
there's not many jobs you could turn up to and lose money at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that you have to have your business fundamentals down straight away, because you are your own business and you have to be there every day, and you might have 4 or 5 clients that come and see you regularly. If you're working at a very high-end gym in London, you can afford to charge higher rates, and that might be you. You might see that that's providing you with a decent income. All of a sudden, if you lose 2 of those clients,
there's been loads of PTs I've worked with who have been good personal trainers, but they've lost 1 or 2 clients, and then it just suddenly doesn't become like business smart to stay in that gym. But so I just it was risky, but I had some like clients from the nightclub world and some friends in the area, so I hit the ground running. So I did find it a fairly easy switch. It was hard not to go back into the clubs because I kept getting offers that were
especially
quite
because
tempting.
it's different times of the day as well. So that's the free time you have. You might think, I could be going an extra couple hundred quid here, a couple of nights a week, taking up a 300 quid in a week. So one of the things that we are pushing for on this podcast is to find people that do run their own self-styled business. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a musician, a DJ, personal trainer, property developer, and understand what it took, the sacrifices that need to be made when you go from having that cushy little income from the nightlife job and then taking that step. So having your qualifications that you have, one of the main things that caught my eye, apart from being an absolute unit and like benching mad amounts, was the fact you have level 5 qualifications in nutrition, but also, was it weight loss, fat loss?
Weight loss, exercise, specific nutrition, and dietary supplements.
So when I got my qualifications, it was as a level 3 PT, which is your average gym floor level qualification, and you go from there, and you meant to do 1 course a year to kind of keep your personal trainer insurance, whatever it is, up from there. So what's the difference between that level of intensity when you're doing that level 3 and then stepping it up to those level 5s? And did you do those all in one course, or was it level 2 and 3 first and then
I did
later?
I did level 2 and level 3, or was it just straight to level 3? I can't remember, to be honest.
Well, I think they're both in the same kind of course.
I did that. I did a few extra qualifications alongside. So I did like a spin qualification. I did kettlebells. I did TRX. I always thought it's like, both for myself and my clients, I find that it's it makes sense to want to learn more, because then not only can I benefit myself, but my clients can benefit. I also then did level 3 pre and postnatal. Again, working in Chelsea, there's lots of yummy mummies. I thought, this is just,
you devil,
makes smart business sense. It's actually really interesting. I didn't expect to find that area
in that
so
place,
interesting.
That's definitely something that people need to know. You have the right qualifications to do. They're not 100%. Just gonna, if you're doing an exercise and you want to know,
but also, I want to know. I don't want to risk
of course.
A pregnant lady. But I found that really interesting, actually. But then I was always looking to just enhance my education. And I feel like the fitness industry is so saturated with just your generic level 3 PTs, and no offense to your own qualification, but the level 3 is a load of rubbish.
It teaches you, if you go to the gym and it teaches you the complete fundamentals, doesn't it?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, like, I was very passionate about nutrition and exercise before doing the level 3, and I feel like the level 3 taught me maybe a little bit more about anatomy, but that was about it.
Yeah.
I also disagree with some of the principles that are taught in level 3.
Like what, for example?
Just the way they structure exercise, the way the nutrition is very limited.
It is just a brief overview. One of the things that they want to do is make sure that you know how to organise a class from start to finish, do a warm up, that kind of stuff. So it is that basic stuff now.
But they teach very it is very generic and well, it's not short-sighted, but
that's the entry level, isn't it?
They will teach you your knee shouldn't pass over your toes. Now, realistically, if you know about anatomy,
well, obviously they're going to go over.
There's not
everyone's different.
You don't need to it's depending on ankle flexion, depending on numerous things. It can change person to person, but you get someone who sticks to the letter of the law, and they're like, "You're doing it wrong because your knees are going over your toes." They clearly they've just taken that little bit of knowledge and stuck with it, sort of thing. So
it does get you going though, and it's an entry level. The reason I wanted to do it is because I wanted to be in because I had other projects going on at the time. I wanted to start a business where I could have free time if I needed to be off for 2 weeks doing something else. So it gets you into it. But that's, again, the reason I was so interested in speaking to you is because you do have that. Yeah. I'd never even heard of a level 5 until I saw.
I'm not knocking like the level 3 as in like, but I feel like that's what separates, like, because there's so many people who are personal trainers now. The industry is so saturated. You go to gyms and there's far too many personal trainers for the number of clients there. I feel like if you are actually passionate about, helping people and about learning more about how to improve the body, that should be your bare minimum. You should be wanting to further your education because you should be wanting to learn more of how to help people and distinguish yourself from the other people who have just gone, I'll get my level 3, make it, £50 an hour or whatever they're charging wherever they are.
Of course.
And that's it. Like, I feel like it's also, people think personal trainer, it's easy, they get paid well per hour. It's like, well, you have to graft. I start at my first clients at 6 a.m. Today I will finish at 8:30. That's a long fucking day. Like, granted, the money is good if you're busy, but again, you've got to create that busyness for yourself. The clientele aren't always there, but you could be in the gym like for hours. You might not be making the money you need to. It's very like, it does annoy me when people think, oh, like personal training is easy. There's very long
I feel
days.
like with any self-sustaining business, whether you're doing sales, whether you're a painter and decorator, whether you are a DJ, it is what you make of it. Yeah. And you get out what you put in. It's such a cliche saying, but and personal training is a sales job through and through. You need to sell yourself. You need to constantly make sure your customers are happy, and referrals. That's where you'll drum up most of your business. So for someone like you, again, going back to that whole point of how your elite level of training, to me, that is something that's so interesting. And I'm always drawn to people, like if I'm ever sitting there scrolling through Insta, like my missus will look at me going, what are you doing? I'm just looking at geezers in the gym, just training, babe. She's like, you're so weird.
It's not gay.
Yeah. So it's wicked to have you in. So your own training, walk me through your own training, because obviously you've just come off the SAS show, so we want to touch on that. So how well prepared were you? Because from the last episode, you're still there, boy. You're still hanging in.
To be honest, I wasn't like well prepared as in I did loads of training specific to going on that show. I actually found out, it's funny, they do like the interview that's filmed that's then cut into the show in bits. I turned up to my interview not knowing that was the interview to go into the show.
Oh, really?
Because when I signed up for the show, I used an email address that then went out of, like, it stopped working. So I didn't have that email address. It was attached to an old website of mine.
Yeah.
So then they sent the congratulations email to that email address. So then I turned up, like, to the interview not knowing I'd got it. So they were asking me all these questions and I was like, why is this being recorded? Like, I was like, these are all hypothetical questions, right? And they were like, what are you talking about? You're on. And I was like,
oh my God, wow.
Well, I don't know. Like, I was like, what?
So what are the kind of questions they asked you in the interview?
So I missed about 2 weeks. They send you a 4-week program of training.
Yeah.
I think I only got 2 weeks before I was going. So I literally they give you boots that you wear on the show. Yeah. So all I did was wear in them. Like, I did a couple of jogs in them and just wore them every day. What's the difference
between the training that they kind of tell you to do between your normal compound lifting, HIIT training and stuff?
I think their training is just a bit more sort of like, there's a little bit of weighted running in there because obviously you've got your Bergen, which is your backpack on. So it's weighted running. There's a little bit of sort of, I think they put sprints in it just to get you like up and down the hills that they were doing. I think there were pull-ups and it was like bodyweight stuff, squats, push-ups, pull-ups, things that I do plenty of already. So it wasn't really like I feel like had I had a few extra, they were also like do loads of swimming in cold water.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't enjoy it. I'm not going to do it. I think had I had more time, I think I would have done. I'd have done a few more like longer distance runs with a weighted vest or whatever. But realistically,
but you're never gonna. It doesn't matter what the training is you do away from it. You're never gonna turn up there and be like, "Yeah, I was well prepared for it."
Yeah,
that's the whole point.
The physicality of it, like for me, like I'm fit. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't the most challenging thing. Like obviously, there were one or two tasks that would have wiped anyone out. Realistically, the log challenge we saw in
of course
the other episode, like it went on for about 6 or 7 hours. The weather conditions were so horrific that you can't practice for that.
Yeah.
And I think on reduced rations, you're gonna struggle. Like there's no way I'm gonna prepare for that. So realistically, all the other physical stuff, it was hard, but it wasn't like the hardest bit was the cold. And the sort of like not knowing what was coming next.
What about the sleep?
The sleep. My missus is a night owl, so I'm all right with the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Like she wants to stay up till like 1 or 2, and I have to get up at 5. So 3 hours of sleep is all right for me.
Well prepared.
Plus, I can sleep anywhere. Everyone was so annoyed with me. All the recruits were like, "For fuck's sake," because I literally be like, "Oh, we're gonna sleep now." I'm like,
"Yeah, surely if you're
like,
that tired."
What the fuck? I was like, "What's wrong with you people?
Sleeping
You're
again.
just stressing out. You know, what's the point?"
It's a mad thing to think that what we get to see, the time frame we get to see, what is it, 40 minutes with a few adverts in between.
It's mental how much is cut.
That looks tough as it is, but the actual hours of the day, the time you guys must put in, it must be so frustrating actually, Chris, to sit there and watch it and be like, they've fucking missed this out, they've missed that out, and people are like, "Oh, that looks so tough," and you're like, "Geez, you've got no idea what that was actually like, that task."
I think like I know a few of the recruits who are not best pleased with how it's been edited. Now, like I've really enjoyed watching it back on TV, like even if I haven't featured that much and you just see me swearing occasionally.
It's jokes.
But
it is every episode. There's one little thing going in there. Just Chris,
fuck's sake.
But I think that's because you were doing well. I mean, the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, I think like they cut large bits out. I mean, the only bit I was a bit annoyed with, there were lots of bits I was annoyed that were cut out because they were quite funny and stuff.
There was one bit at the beginning you said you got sent back in.
I got sent back in the water.
Why did they punish you for that?
Oh, fuck. So you saw us like jump out of the boat and swim to shore.
This is the very first episode.
Very first thing.
Yeah.
It was just jokes. So like I was one of the last people on the shore. And I arrive and you're just sort of standing in fucking Scotland. It's so cold, but you see camera crews, you see like drones overhead. Like I'm not used to that. So like I'm looking around, I'm taking in my surroundings. Obviously, Ant Middleton's giving it a big speech. I'm not paying attention. I'm just looking around. He catches me just not paying attention. So he's like, "For fuck's sake, you at the back, like, am I not interesting enough or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, shit." So he's like, "Get back in the water." And so I start to walk off. And my missus was like, "I'll bet you're the first person to fuck up." So as I start to walk off, I remember this in my head. So I start laughing.
Yeah.
And then one of the other, like, DS, I think it was Ollie, saw me laughing. And he was like, "That's fucking funny, is it?"
Oh, mate, wow.
Fucking fully submerge yourself. So I was in that water for another 15 minutes, like up to my neck.
And then they just cut that, and it's frustrating.
And they cut that.
So
I was
frustrating.
like, I mean, granted, it shows me like being a dick, but I was like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of annoying, but like, I understand why they cut things. I felt a little bit bad for like the first 2 guys who left because it looks like they're just jogging up a hill and they quit.
Yeah.
Realistically, we had been crawling on our stomachs in just our boxes, so we were all cut to pieces, and we're doing like squat jumps for hundreds of meters up a hill.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to quit at that point. I was never going to, but like, it was not fun. So when they quit, it sort of looked, and everyone's sitting at home on their couch, and they're like,
it looks like they've just been absolute
like, "Fuck, what's wrong with that guy? He's done like 200 meters and he's quit." When in reality, he'd gone through about probably an hour or something of hell up until that point. So I felt I can see why they would be a little bit annoyed. But again, like, it's TV. I mean, like, like, it's just cut. My client Sam always told me, like, it'll be interesting to see how they cut things. I never really got it, but now that I've seen it, I'm like, Okay.
It's a rude awakening.
It's rude, yeah.
When you do TV and you think these are how things are going to play out, and then you see the edit come back. There's that saying in TV, the power's in the edit. The edit have all the power. And there's so many brilliant creative minds that could probably do many wonderful artistic things, but they end up either being part of the production and the edit on TV because there's constant paychecks. And end of the day, these shows, look, SAS Who Dares Wins is one of my favourite shows on TV, but I'm so glad that I've had the chance to do this podcast, bring you on. We've got Kim and Miles coming on next week as well, to actually have a chat about it and just be like, what really went down out there? Because you just know, for me, sitting having a conversation with you about it for an hour, I'll get much more out of that than I would watching the whole series of the SAS Who Dares Wins. I think
it's just like, you miss bits. Like, I know my housemate and my missus do like watching it with me because then I can explain a little bit more of like what you haven't seen. For me, I'm terrified of heights, and I was so annoyed because they cut the entire thing actually.
Episode 2, this one.
No, well, I didn't know that was episode 1, but they cut the helicopter. I was attached to the outside of a helicopter, so I'm scared of heights, and you're attached to the outside of a helicopter. Now, it was an amazing experience, but I was bricking it.
So when you say attached, what, you're on the...
Like, literally on the, like, foot bit.
Yeah.
And you're like, you got a harness, but you're like, and you're kneeling into the helicopter and leaning back. And it goes, like, up, spins round, like, it was fucking terrifying. And then you abseil off. And I was one of, I think it was only 3 of us or 4 of us who managed to do it abseil into a boat. Then the weather conditions got too bad and everyone had to sort of do it onto like the beach or something.
Yeah.
And that's why they cut it, because the weather
So you got down from the helicopter onto the target of the boat?
Yeah.
Wow. What a rush.
This was the bit. So like, because I was one of like, only like 4 of us who did it, and there was 23 of us at the time or whatever, I had to swim back to shore. Now, swimming in fully clothed, it's hard work. It's also freezing. Now, the other 2 or 3 people who did it, they swam to like the side and then walked along because they weren't the best swimmers, so they were allowed to do that. I was a decent swimmer, so I had to swim back to shore. So you get on shore, we've got dry kit, so I change into the dry kit. Then everyone else does it onto the fucking beach, so they're not getting wet, they're not getting cold, and they've still got dry kit in their bag, where I'm now in my dry kit.
So that was your moment where you really
so I was
shone.
like, well, that definitely will get shown. And they just cut the whole thing.
Fuckers,
but I felt bad I felt bad for one of the recruits because she just disappeared from the show at that point. And actually, it was probably the biggest head fuck of the show for me. Was we were then about to leave, and he was like, face your transport. So we all turned to the Range Rovers that were up the hill, and he was like, no, turn around. And so we turned around, and it was like the ocean. And he was like, you see that boat over there? And the boat was like 500 meters away. And I just swam like half that distance. And that, I almost drowned in the boat. Yeah. I mean, it's hard work. So there's a boat 500 meters away, and he's like, that's your extraction point. You're going to swim there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't have any dry clothes. So once I've done this swim, I'm just going to have to stay in my wet clothes. I was like, and 2, I've almost drowned swimming half the difference. So there's distance. There's no way I'm going to make the 500 meters. But I was like, I'm also not going to quit. The girl next to me, who was one of the only people who had done the boat as well, was like, she just sat back down. So they were like, give me your number. So she quit. And then they were like, all right, everyone, fuck off back to the Range Rovers.
Oh, really? So they just wanted to see...
It was a head fuck. It was to see how strong you were mentally.
Oh, my God. They just wanted to test you.
Because I was stubborn. I was like, there's no way I'm going to swim that.
Yeah, you'd rather get pulled out to sea and have to quit.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Wow. She, like, sat back down. And so they cut her. But, like, you don't see that on the show. So I was like...
Well, that's the thing. They're there to completely test you. There's no safe space. You're never going to get to the end of a task and be like, cool, right, I'm safe now. They'll put you to bed and wake you up half an hour later. I mean, obviously, I'm just going off what I see, but it seems pretty ruthless. So what would you say was your highlight, if there was one, apart from the helicopter? That's some serious James Bond shit as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was like, that's something you can go into a room and be like, have you ever, like... gone on the side of a helicopter.
Did you see what I did?
But like, no, you can be like, oh yeah, I've never been, like, have you ever abseiled out of a moving helicopter? I have. But obviously, so I was a little bit gutted it wasn't shown, but at the same time, like, I'll always have that to be able to say to someone.
I believe you did it, Chris.
Yeah. Well, fuck you.
No, it's real.
I've got people who back me up.
Yeah.
Channel 4. My highlights. I don't know. There was a funny moment they cut as well when we're in the parade square, and Middleton's giving one of these big speeches again, like, oh, this is Scotland, it's so, going off on one. Fuck, and I just yawned. I didn't mean to, but he caught me yawning, and he was like, am I fucking boring you? And I was like...
Does he get right up in your face as well?
And you're like, what do you say at that point? I was like, no, it's like a natural thing, like, I'm sorry, mate.
Yeah, I've had
so he got me
an hour and a half sleep in the past 3 days, mate. Like.
So he got me in a plank position and then just forgot about me. So then he starts talking and it goes on for another 10, 15 minutes. And he's like, everyone fuck off back to barracks. And they almost all trampled on me because I'm still behind them in a fucking plank position. Fuck. So I was like, do I just go? And he just like looked at me and I was like, oh, okay, I'm fucking off now.
So where are we now in the series then? I think there's one or two more episodes.
There's two more episodes.
Yeah. Are you allowed? I'm not. I don't even want to ask you how far you get because I do hope you make it to the end. I hope you're
going to have to wait and see.
Yes. But, that's very well TV trained. That's very well media trained. You have to tune in next week.
It was one of the biggest, that's like, everyone always asks me, how far do you get?
Yeah,
like,
I don't.
Motherfucker, if you like the show, watch it.
Yeah, I've got no interest. I think definitely how far you've got is testament to you as well because it's tough from day one. How long did the whole thing go on for, start to finish?
2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks, start to finish. And do they do is it 2 days per episode?
Yeah, I think it's about 2 days per episode. Like they sort of cut and edit it in a bit of a strange way. So like that first episode where you see us like go off the boat into the water and then you see the backwards dive, they put that as the next day. It's the same day. So like it's a little bit of a funny edit.
I've got so much respect for people that go on that show, and it's like you can see everyone's getting tested, and the men and the women all the same. But I mean, massive shout out to the women who are out there completely smashing it. There's some absolute beasts on there.
Mentally, they are probably. I'm happy to say they're probably stronger than men. Like because realistically, like someone like me, if I'm fitter and stronger than a woman, I'm probably going to find that task easier.
Yeah.
But so if I'm thinking of quitting. What is someone who's finding it harder physically harder?
Yeah.
What's she thinking? But she doesn't quit. So you're like,
well, that physical strength, the deficit in the physical strength is only made up and balanced by the mental fortitude. Yeah. They're only going to still be there if they have that iron will.
But I think like definitely like it goes. I feel like it goes well. They're definitely like mentally, I'd give them the edge because like. I mean, I was thinking of quitting quite a bit. Like, I wasn't ever going to, but like the thought was there.
Oh, from day one, you must be thinking.
And I was probably one of the fittest people on that. Yeah. So, like, if I was one of the least fit, I'd be like, oh, I'm out of here. Yeah. Like, this is hard. So, like, I found some challenges easy, but was still like, fuck, that was not fun.
Yeah, close,
so if someone was struggling in that challenge, they must like really. It must be so much harder for them. So, like, to keep going and not quit. And a lot of the women, some of them got cut because they just couldn't keep up. But they would never have quit. You speak to those girls who got cold. Yeah, I know for a fact. I saw
one of the twins.
Yesterday.
There was a massive thing where one of the twins got asked to go, and people were like, "Why? Like, why did she?"
The sisters.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not the twins. The sisters, right?
So you're confusing me. I was like,
sorry. Not twins. Yeah, the sisters. They one of them got asked to go, and that was. Yeah. I'd actually been speaking to both of them throughout the course of the series because I'd like them to come on here. And I said, you've done yourself well. But I think they just see something and they just decide that, because they have to cut people. So even if you're all excellent, they have to look at the least excellent.
I think like there's quite a lot going on. Obviously, like you've got psych evaluations, you've got a doctor, you've got like, there's many things they look at before they cut people. And also like they've got to think of, I guess, the storyline or like, I guess with the sisters, it's also like, maybe one of them is stronger than the other, but like, will one of them going
affect the other one?
Yeah,
like, of course.
There's other elements into it.
They just try and use any kind of opening, any kind of attachment, or they will use that to test you. They hear
everything we say, they see everything we do, so they'll see. Whilst I could be sat at home watching the show and be like, that seems unfair. Maybe I didn't see everything that they saw to why that person got cut. So like, I don't like. I think it's always hard if you're one of those people who got cut. But again, like, I'm sure there's some rationale behind why.
I think I'd rather make it to a point where they just say, right, for whatever unknown reason, you've not made it, you're going to have to give us your band, then be one of the people that actually drops out and is like, I choose to do it, I VW, as opposed to the ones who are, because you can still rest in the peace where you rest in the peace of mind where you pushed hard enough. But
I think it would trouble me a little bit, because I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
I'm clearly better than
But there's a reason, as long as you didn't give up, I think that's the main thing. I mean, that poor girl that passed out as well, that's crazy.
Kirsty,
bless her. That was really quite frightening.
Whited.
That was really quite frightening.
I didn't even know that happened. I was on the other team, but
yeah, it must be interesting looking back and seeing things that you didn't see. That must be really
100%.
one of the most interesting.
And then obviously,
like
some people's stories come out. So the James's story came out in the last episode, and I spoke to him a lot, but he was quite like, he didn't give up his story. So when I was watching it on TV and it was from his master interview, I was like, oh, holy fuck, that's what he was like, sort of guarding a little bit. And I get it. Like, not everyone wants to just like immediately say why they're on or, give it up. Like Jerome, he didn't say for ages that he'd been in like prison or whatever. Like, it's personal, I guess. Like, so I understand it, but so it's quite interesting to watch and see that.
Of course. I feel like it's frustrating that I haven't got to see the people that I want to see more. I want to see more of Miles. I want to see more of Kim. I definitely want to see more of you. And it's they are under the cosh because they've only got a certain amount of time to actually get all of
got 25 people to fit into 6 episodes, and realistically, you've got to show. Like, there's people who have got more interesting stories than others, let's be real. And there's people who struggle more than others. So, like, realistically, if you just, as you say, like, potentially I didn't struggle enough at the start. It's quite possible. But then there's also the factor of, like, someone, Kirsty, who got quite a bit of airtime at the beginning, she messed up the first challenge. So, that was something that they could use to then, create the storyline. So I kind of understand it. Would I like to be on it more? Yes, but like I've thoroughly enjoyed watching it.
Would you go back and do it again?
Yeah, of course I would. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I'd prefer if it was like the desert edition. So I'm good in heat. Right. I'm not good in cold.
So talk to me about the food, because obviously you have, as you just mentioned to me earlier today, you have Crohn's.
Yeah.
Is that something that you speak about openly, or?
Yeah. So that was actually one of the reasons for going on SAS, was to raise awareness of the condition, to try and provide inspiration for others who suffer from the condition, like what you can still achieve. So obviously I had to do all right on the show.
You've done amazingly. I mean, to be honest, I'm not well versed on Crohn's, so speak to me like I'm a newborn baby about it. So Crohn's what age did you discover that this was something that you were suffering from?
I got diagnosed at the age, it was the beginning of second year of university, so I was about 19. And I just started to get really bad stomach pain. The doctor kept saying it was probably IBS, so Irritable Bowel Syndrome, which is quite like an overdiagnosed thing. So I started taking different things out of my diet, and I kept getting like ill. I kept having stomach pain, and it actually took me passing out in the waiting room of the doctors before it was taken more seriously. Wow. And I woke up in hospital, where I spent quite a long time actually that year. But so for me, I want to become a better ambassador of the condition, but it's quite with Crohn's comes quite a few embarrassing things that, and if you're a polite Englishman, which probably not, but it's quite hard to talk about things like, it's all to do with like toiletry stuff. And
yeah, of course,
it's a little embarrassing, but also like, when I first got it, it was right when you're sort of reaching that sexual age where you don't want that sort of embarrassing stuff to be spoken about. So I for years I really struggled, and I still do struggle to talk about a lot of it. But I wanted to go on that show to sort of also just speak to strangers about it and actually open up and be like, I have this condition, it comes with this.
I think people struggling with Crohn's, one of the things that I definitely know about it is that people do struggle to get their diet right. They struggle to find the motivation to exercise, and that belief of being able to be, you know, someone who suffers from Crohn's, but also be someone who possesses a physically strong body are two things that people may think they counteract.
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. I'm not going to lie to you. With Crohn's, you've basically got a faulty digestive system. So, you know, you struggle to get the nutrients in you need.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the lack of nutrients, like energy levels can be diminished. So it's very counter exercise in the sense of like, if you're struggling to get in the right foods, you're struggling with energy, you're struggling to like, you know, get into the gym physically because you're having toiletry problems or whatever that comes with it. It's quite hard to exercise, but then actually with the condition, it will benefit from a good diet. It will benefit from a good workout routine. So I try and, you know, I get a lot of people who ask me questions about it, and I try and, I guess, give them good advice in terms of what I do that helps me. But there's no cure. There's no like, this is how you make it better. Like, everyone has differing levels, differing sort of triggers. Last week, I mean, I've had it for over 10 years now. Last week, I had a flare-up. I couldn't tell you why. I eat predominantly the same things most of the week. So I limit the sort of flare-ups that can be caused by having dairy or having gluten or whatever. So, you know, sometimes it can be through stress. Sometimes it can be through lack of sleep. But so last week, I dropped 2.5 kilos in the space of, I think I was flaring badly for about 4 or 5 days. It's quite hard to then be like, oh, I'm motivated to get back into the gym. I train religiously and I can be lifting X amount on the bench, and then I'll have a bad week and I'll be, 30 kilograms less on the bench. And it's quite like, it's hard to stay motivated when something can knock you down.
Of course. I mean, that's something that's going to take away your fundamental energy system, because if you're not getting the nutrients in and you have that flare up, it's like you're kind of just a victim to it, in every sense of the word. So the people that I know that have developed Crohn's, it always seems to come later in life. And do you feel like, I mean, you mentioned you were at university, you was 19. At that time, were you out drinking a lot? Is that, I mean, silly question.
Yeah,
right?
no, to be honest, they don't know why people develop the condition.
Is it something that...
And there are children who get it,
right,
and there are quite old adults, I guess, that get it.
Is it something that people can get through... Is it something that people are genetically disposed to, or is it something that can develop?
There's so much that's not known.
So frustrating.
They say it's quite annoying. Like, to put it in perspective, I remember being in quite a dark place when I was in hospital because I didn't know what it was. I'd been ill for months of pain. I was almost hoping it was like something like cancer, because then at least I'd just get a diagnosis.
Sure.
Then I got the diagnosis, and it's like, all right, so what meds do I get? How do we cure this? And they're like, oh, so there's no cure. And you're like,
wow.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Well, let me just say, massive respect, obviously, for just being fit, being someone who, because you're not someone who's got relative shape, or, someone who's, relatively fit. You are a beast in the gym from what I see. I'd love to get over another session with you.
Always welcome, mate.
So how are you dealing with it at the moment then in regards to the Crohn's? And is it something that just flares up completely randomly? Is it something you managed to stay on top of, having dealt with it for 10 years now?
It's predominantly I'd say it was random in terms of the flare-ups, but it's usually, for me, it's usually a stress-related cause. That's why I'm quite people say rude or whatever. I say I don't care, because I can't let things affect me as much as other people do, because it's actually going to make me ill. So I try and just be like a sort of fuck it approach.
I noticed from the jumper.
But for example, lots of people
you're just protecting yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
Essentially, it became a lot better for my quality of life to just be like, all right, I don't care. Because if I'm going to stress over that, I could damage my health.
Wipe you out for a week.
Crohn's is degenerative, so the more flare-ups you have, it flares and remits, the more of the flare-ups and the more of that sort of spiking you have, the more it is degenerative, so the worse the condition will get over time.
Take something away
from
you.
If I can limit the amount of flare-ups I have, the better for my life.
So do you I mean, it might sound like a silly question, but in regards to kind of socialising, going out, things like that, do you drink at all?
I've got better at sort of having a more balanced life. I've had stages where I was teetotal for about, 5 or 6 years. I tried to avoid sort of social interaction because I couldn't control the food.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say no to alcohol, but I didn't want to drink alcohol. So I've found a nice balance. I feel like the people in my life have really helped that, like from family to girlfriend, sort of, they've helped create that balance. So it's not easy. It's really not. And it's very easy to go into yourself, like become quite reclusive, because obviously toiletry stuff, again, you don't want to be caught short.
Of course. Well, I think
a lot of social things involve food and drinks, as it were. And those two are really quite troublesome for people with the condition.
And the anxiety levels of it's not just a night out, it's you've got to make sure that you're all right. But I think one of the things I would say is that everyone has, that can be, it's a very intimate thing, isn't it? In regards to what you're talking about, but everyone has their personal issues, things that they'd rather improve. So it's important to not, and I completely respect you for talking openly about it. It's something to not feel isolated with.
Yeah, but that's 100%. Like if I could go back in time, or people ask me what is the best advice you'd give, I'd be like, talk to people. Yeah. I wish I could talk to, maybe 20, 21-year-olds me and be like, you're not alone. Like there are, these are better ways of coping with it, but also just talk to someone. Like I just close myself off a lot, and it's lonely, but it's also like it's not helpful. Like there's no point in living a life where you're not doing anything with that life.
Are there support groups? Any places
massively
you can go?
So. Like there's even things I follow a page on Instagram that's like, I think it's called Our Crohn's or something, and it's literally people just ask questions and then other people with Crohn's just respond. So
I think it's important for people, especially young people, to realise that, I mean, unless you are an anomaly, I try not to speak in absolutes because there's always going to be someone that's an anomaly to that, but unless there is something completely, off the chart, there's no new problem that you can have. Any problem that we have as human beings, there's been hundreds of thousands of people that have suffered with that specific problem before us, whether that's addiction, whether that's Crohn's, whether that's depression, whether that's, eating disorders. People have had, it might not be 100% the same, but the fundamentals, people have suffered from those before. They've probably come some way to solving those problems or found ways to mediate them, and they've probably written about it in a book, and there's probably support groups out there to help people.
And you can always draw on other people's experiences even if they aren't the same as yours.
So what kind of tips would you say if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, 20-year-old self and say, you need to get yourself up to date on nutrition, you need to focus on stress, what are the tips? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What would you go back and say?
I think the important thing that I want to get across as well is I know that everyone's Crohn's is different. So there's no fix-it solution. There are people who you can have the focal point of your condition in different places, creating sort of more extreme levels of the problem. Like there are some people who end up with colostomy bags or, bowel resections, and they didn't really have the chance to fix their diet or their training or whatever it is because of the severity of it. Like obviously you can manage it, but it's hard to just blanket statement it, because I know people who have had no choice. Like they got diagnosed and then they had a colostomy bag put in immediately because the severity of the first flare-up was so bad that there was no chance of managing it. What I would say is one of the things that helped me best was getting on top of the nutrition, because it's such an important thing, like in anyone's life, but especially in the life of someone with Crohn's. So I did a sort of, what was it? It was I forget the word for the diet, but essentially it's where you take everything out and then you just slowly put back things in. It's the exclusion diet.
Exclusion diet, there you go, that's it.
So I started with I took everything out and I just started with a rice cake. Bland food, gluten-free, I ate that.
Did you do any blood tests to see if you had specific intolerances?
A lot of the blood tests I would not trust, to be honest with you. A lot of people rely on them, and I could do a blood test now and it could give me things I'm not really intolerant to. Like, they're not... People push them.
What about specific like DNA tests?
Again, there's a lot of like pseudoscience in there. Like, you could take a test now and it will tell you you're allergic to caffeine. What would happen if you had caffeine? Very little, to be honest. You might get a little bit of inflammation markers in your body. It doesn't mean you're actually like, have this.
What if you did one test a week for, say, 6 weeks? Would that give you a balanced kind of look on?
Yeah,
you had a control level.
It really, like, intolerances are so vague. Like, allergies, like, you know, if you get something and you are allergic to where you will have an anaphylactic shock, then I understand it. There's a lot of, like, people want to push intolerances on, like, oh, I don't eat this because of the intolerance. But then actually, if you gave that person said intolerance, you can't see me doing air quotes on the podcast, they wouldn't actually have a problem. So there's
for me, talking personally, when I have dairy and gluten, I definitely notice it's not an allergy, but I blow out massively.
It could be I'm not saying you're not intolerant to it, and I'm not saying intolerances don't exist. I'm saying, like, I think a lot is misunderstood about what an intolerance is.
You haven't got the key of the science down to it yet.
Yeah, and just like, I feel like, you know, whilst something like veganism is on trend, people think like being gluten-free is more healthy. It's not. But sort of like this media or, you know, whatever...
There's a market to it.
There's a market. There's a product line. See, like, oh, gluten-free, I'm going to go gluten-free.
And they'll put some models or some celebrities onto it.
About gluten-free, if you're not intolerant to gluten, why would you not eat it?
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with gluten. It's actually quite... Usually, a gluten-full something is usually lower in calories and better than the gluten-free version.
Oh.
So, like, it's one of those, like, we like to jump on these intolerances. We like to jump on these different diets. We like to, like... without knowing the science, without knowing, like, how it actually affects your body. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't. Like, if you eat dairy and you feel bloated, yeah, it's quite possibly you have an intolerance. It might just be a lack of a certain enzyme that digests that dairy in your body, and it's quite an easy fix. People start pulling all these large food groups out of their diets, and then they end up why they have problems with other things. It's because they're not replacing the nutrients that they were getting before. You could suddenly take out all the dairy and you're like, oh, I feel so like less bloated. And then in a few weeks down the road, you start to have problems with your skin. I don't understand this. I'm not eating dairy anymore. Well, you're not getting, I think one of the things people do, calcium, you're not getting your vitamin, you're not getting all these things that you were getting from the dairy. All right, maybe you're intolerant, but you haven't replaced it.
I think one of the things people do, they'll cut out, like, a lot of vegans won't start taking on enough protein. They'll lose loads of weight and then they'll be tired throughout the day and stuff, but they won't understand why. And it's because of that lack of protein. Your body's not repairing itself. And carbohydrates as well. When people completely cut out carbs and then they've got low energy, bad moods, and they're like, I'm slim, but I'm completely tired all day long.
People I like to mock vegans on my Instagram. It's not, I've got no problem with veganism. I've got a problem with, like, people doing it poorly educated and I guess for the wrong reasons, as it were. I think if you are against the killing of animals, then fine, go vegan. But if you're going to go vegan, just, like, read up on it first, because there's a lot of ways that you can become, like, nutrient deficient in things. And, like, the problem is the vocal vegans are usually, like, they don't understand the science, but they'll just like to push their agenda, and they'll also just make blanket statements. They'll be like, you can get enough protein if you're vegan. You can, yeah. But you've got to be smart with your food choices. You can't get certain essential fatty acids if you're vegan unless you take supplements. There's no way. Unless you're eating...
Omega-3.
So there's two different fats, EPA and DHT, that the body can't produce. So you need to... That's why it's essential. You can't produce it. So we need to take it in a food source. Normally it's something like... It'll be in eggs or in fish. If you're vegan, you're not getting those things. The only other source of it is from an algae. Now, unless you're eating plate loads of algae, which I can guarantee, vegan is, you're not getting those things. And it doesn't matter
a spoonful of spirulina is not going to do the trick.
Yeah, it's not. And if you're eating it doesn't matter if you're eating, they'll say oh, I get omega-3 from chia seeds or whatever. It's not the same. You're still not getting the EPA and DHC. You can get some of it by conversion of ALA, but it's not efficient and you probably won't get enough. So actually, if you're being a good vegan, you will need to take a algae supplement to get that fat in. But I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10 the vegan you ask won't know that.
Yeah.
And they won't be taking that. So they're actually just doing damage to themselves through that lack of knowledge. Now, you can be a very good vegan if you're taking those things, if you're getting the right, you can get all the protein you want from natural source, non-fat, non-animal sources. But I guarantee a lot of them won't know it. So I make fun of them just because I'm either sparking a bit of interest in the subject and then I can converse with them and educate them, or they'll just give me some stupid response being and
you're a monster.
They're just proving a point. They're just
So I think we're pretty much running out of time, so we're gonna have to wrap up soon. But it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. One thing that I wanted to ask you about is Sam Thompson. Obviously, you're Sam Thompson's trainer. I've got to say, over the years, I've seen
he looks bloody great. Doesn't
he looks like a unit. He looks very good. He's very well shaped out.
He started training legs as well.
Yeah, you've done really well with him, and you've been his trainer for some time now.
Yeah, I've been his friend for, I'd say, about 4 years. He was training with another trainer who got him a really good foundation, and I've just sort of picked up from there. But he's a very driven guy. I think you can know Sam Thompson off social media, but actually knowing the guy in person, he's very driven and he doesn't like being bad at something, and that makes him very good at when he puts his mind to something. So he didn't want to be that skinny kid anymore. So he's really, determined he has gone.
I remember being shocked and seeing him and thinking, wow, he's definitely beefed out. It's funny because he's still in his little demeanour that he's got.
Yeah.
But he takes his top off and he's like, he's a monster.
He's a unit. Yeah.
It's good, mate. I'm going to have to come in and train with you. So what gym are you at?
It's One London. It's in Imperial Wharf.
Yeah.
So
stunning up that way, isn't it?
Yeah,
beautiful.
Chelsea area. You can't go wrong.
Nice. Cool, man. Well, listen, thanks so much for coming on, Chris. Absolute
pleasure,
massive respect for SAS, and I'm looking forward to watching you. This episode will go out on Tuesday, so I would have seen you. Hopefully, you're still there by the time this episode goes out.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see, mate. Thanks so much for coming in, Chris.
My pleasure, man.
Huge thanks to everyone who's tuned in and made it to the end of the podcast. Absolutely brilliant conversation today with Chris. If anyone wants to follow his Instagram, it's at @ChristopherBarker_PT. If you'd like to get in contact with him about training, online plans, or even perhaps just have a conversation with him about Crohn's, feel free to drop him a message. Chris, thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed, guys. See you soon.